You are now listening to the Going North podcast with your host, author and speaker, Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, you're going to hear the voice of a different author share their stories, expertise, and their struggles that they had to overcome in life to leave you inspired to get more out of your life. Be sure to not only listen to this episode, but share with others, connect with the authors, and always advance others to advance yourself. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, it is going to be a New Year's special because we got one heck of an author for you today. This author right here, according to his Twitter, Hugh Jackman, said that he loves his wonderful website because this wonderful gentleman right here has written for Time Magazine and The Guardian, as well as a boatload of other accomplishments. He is also a coach. He has written a best-selling book, and he's got a brand new book coming out in a couple weeks called The Holy Shit Moment, How Lasting Change Can Happen in an Instant. And you might want to go ahead and pick up that wonderful book after hearing this wonderful interview with this amazing author right here, who is one heck of a guy who's going to give you all sorts of tips and techniques to advance yourself. And you're probably wondering who I got today. It is the one, the only, James S. Fell. How are you today, sir?
I'm feeling really good after that introduction. You're a very kind man, Dom.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You gotta admire the folks who did something in life and have the confidence to publish their work and actually promote it, because some folks don't publish and some folks don't promote.
Yeah, well, I mean, writing was my passion, and I was fortunate enough to be able to turn it into a career.
Amen to that. So what led to your passion for writing?
You know, it's interesting that through the course of writing this book, which is about discovering your passion, what you feel is your destiny in life that you have to achieve through a lightning strike, quote unquote. In the research of doing that, I realized that this was a sort of a skill and a desire that I'd had going way back even into childhood. Even though I didn't write much when I was young, I did sort of do the daydreaming and storytelling of myself. Telling myself stories and telling other people stories. And then when I went to university, I was drawn to do both a bachelor's and a master's degree in history, because that was, again, writing papers that told people stories. That was the stuff that I ended up being best at. Later on, I did an MBA, and I focused on marketing because, again, marketing is, telling the story of the product, the company, all of that kind of stuff. And then at the age of 40, I decided that, I want to leave the business world and become a writer full time. And when I started focusing on writing about health and fitness and motivation, one of the things that helped my career take off and got me a column at the Los Angeles Times and another at the Chicago Tribune was that they liked the storytelling aspect of how I made it very relatable to people. I was giving them information about how to change their lives, but putting it in a relatable, sort of funny and sarcastic and storytelling format. That it's something that I've been doing my whole life, I guess.
Yeah, and that's something we can appreciate too. And I noticed that with your introduction with the whole grizzly bear story, and it's it's just one heck of an amazing thing.
I was worried when I submitted the book to my editor that, each chapter begins with a pretty way out there personal anecdote that seemingly has nothing to do with the book at all. But then there's a little twitch that flips where it's like all of a sudden you read one sentence that's like, oh, well, that's why he told that really weird story. And I was worried when I submitted the book that the editor was going to say, yeah, you need to cut all those. And I asked her in our first meeting after I submitted the first draft, it's like, so are you okay with those weird chapter introductions? He goes, oh yeah, I love them. Don't cut those. Like, okay, great. So I like them too. There was the one about throwing up on my dog, and the one about burning my thumb, cooking a hot dog.
Oh, man. I guess, hot dog, you're on the wrong roll on that one, huh? Oh, man. And great anecdotes indeed. So, from weight loss to the wonderful lasting change happening in an instant. So, I guess, was it like an instant change that led to wanting to write a book of this caliber, or what led to the whole switch?
So I had experience with having a transformative moment myself, and I was writing about health and fitness primarily for the previous 8 years. And I wanted to write a book that I felt had the potential for, big sales. I wanted to write a book that could be very popular. And I'd always focused on the motivational aspect of health and fitness, getting people to eat better, getting people to exercise, and helping them lose weight. I didn't care about, squat technique or macronutrient ratios or any of that kind of stuff very much. It was more about just getting people off the couch and getting them motivated. And I discovered with my first book, which was a weight loss focused book, that people were not necessarily interested in the brutal reality that I was selling nearly so much as they were interested in some kind of scammy fad diet book. I wasn't going to write a diet book because they're, first of all, I think most diet books are full of crap. But in speaking with my agent, we were talking about, okay, what's my next book going to be about? And we talked about how, I could broaden out into beyond weight loss motivation, into general motivation. I really just started brainstorming for months. And I spent a lot of time riding my bike. A lot of my best ideas come to me when I'm riding my bike. And I saw a guy running wearing a Boston Marathon shirt. And I kind of smiled to myself because I had run the Boston Marathon. I thought, yeah, I did that. And then I realized, I used to really suck at running. I was terrible back in, junior high and high school. And then I remembered, geez, what changed? Like, I went from being a terrible runner to qualifying for the Boston Marathon.
Nice.
And then I recalled that life-changing moment that I had in university where I went from everything sucked. I was flunking out of school. I was in debt. I was drinking way too much, and I was miserable. And then I had this transformative experience in the food court at my alma mater, and everything changed in an instant where I went from having always been lazy and doing the bare minimum to this very hardworking, industrious, driven person where I begged my way out of my failing report card. I ended up getting a couple of master's degrees, and I got in shape, and I had a very successful career. I married the woman of my dreams. We raised a couple of straight A students that have their black belts in karate, all that kind of good stuff. I was like, wow, there was, the before and after was very pronounced, but there was this sharp dividing line of when everything switched. And that gave me the idea that, I've been telling people for years via my writing, the tortoise wins this race. Slow and steady is what gets you there. And I thought, wait a minute. I'd heard many stories of people that had been very successful with weight loss, that they didn't do it the slow and steady route. I mean, it's still slow and steady in terms of taking the weight off. But what transformed very quickly was their attitude. They went through a massive, major mental shift in a moment, a holy shit moment, where they suddenly realized this was going to happen. They knew it with absolute certainty that this time it was going to work, and they were passionately driven where they didn't ever need to struggle for motivation again. They went from completely unmotivated to 100% totally inspired and driven in an instant because of some massive wave of understanding that was just bestowed upon them in a seemingly magical way. And I remembered hearing those stories and I thought, well, shit, that's what happened for me. And that was where, like, I have to write this book. So that's where it came from. And it turns out it's a very common experience. And the people who have those types of experiences, and we're not just talking about weight loss, we're talking about anything, whether it's career or relationships or battling addiction, a number of things. The people that have these sudden transformative experiences, the change that they go through is more substantial than those who do the slow and steady, and their adherence rates are far higher.
Ah, yes. Very true indeed. Very true indeed. And congrats on the black belt family goodness. That's right. It's like, can't get to me. You got to get to the kids. And then you got to get to the wife. Well, actually, the kids, you won't even get past the kids. But yeah, man, it's really true though. It's like there's always that one moment, that defining line where it's kind of all comes together and it kind of starts to get you on a different path, and hopefully helps you to make sense out of it. And especially with I guess in the beginning of the book when you mention the lady who became a fencing silver medal champion, which is awesome. And the funny thing was she was just drinking booze after work all night, just eating whole pizzas and everything and being out of shape.
Yep.
And it's just like, wow, you just find that one thing that can actually help you become inspired and just actually make that mental shift towards greatness on the way.
Yeah, and she's an interesting story because some people, the enlightenment sort of arrives out of nowhere, and other people they have to meet that transformative moment part way. And she was an example of making a small effort of engaging in some experimentation that allowed her to meet it part way, where she was, like you said, she was drinking, she was eating way too much, she was smoking, and she was feeling kind of miserable and uninspired, and she said, not really going anywhere except continuing to exist mired in a mediocre life. And then she saw an ad about fencing and thought, she was a librarian, she was a smart kid growing up and not the jock kid, and she thought fencing seemed like intellectually engaging, so she would give it a try. And she did it for a couple of months and wasn't really all that inspired. But then there was that transformative moment in class one day when everything switched from going to the occasional fencing class to I'm going to get as good at this as I possibly can. And it was all a big switch. And then she quit drinking, quit smoking, lost a whole bunch of weight, and then 10 years later was a North American silver medalist. She still works as a librarian, too. But that was just her passion that she said that changed her life. And it wasn't just, the fact that she got in shape. It changed so many other things for her as well, where she was just changed her mood, where she went from, a state of depression and despair to just feeling much more positive about life. She came to enjoy her job more, and just everything became so much better for her because of that one decision to pick up a sword and see what she could do with it.
That's right. That sword of knowledge, baby. Let me stop. The sword of knowledge. It's just powerful how that just really happens, and then just keeping going from that one moment, then it just expands into different ways of just like thinking and actually creating ideas. And I like what you said earlier about how sometimes your best ideas usually come from riding, right? Riding on a bike, or was it through running?
Yeah, right. Well, riding on a bike usually, but also running. I get my good winter ideas from running because I don't like riding my bike through the snow.
Yeah.
I'm in Canada, and come about end of October, it's like, okay, bike gets put away, and I just I can run in anything, but when it comes to cycling, I'm a little more fair weather.
Yeah, definitely. It might have a better chance getting through the snow on a pogo stick, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Then that'll be the real holy crap moment. It's like, there's this guy on a pogo stick just pummeling through the snow right now. He's getting it.
It look like somebody. I don't even know what to think. What kind of animal track would that be? It would be like a one-legged rabbit or something.
I guess back to the whole tortoise and the hare thing right now. I really know why the hare lost. Tortoise like,
well,
not today,
I gotta
buddy.
tell you, we have a lot of hares in my neighborhood. They're always coming around and crapping on the yard and stuff like that. And I got to tell you, man, they are fast. So I never really liked that whole tortoise and hare analogy because, you know, when the hare is really inspired and pointed in the right direction, they're going to win that race. And the hare in the Aesop's fable was kind of an idiot. Who naps in the middle of a race?
Oh man, that was like the ultimate show of cockiness right there and arrogance.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And the beautiful thing about your love for writing is that not only your books, you also have an awesome blog too, and you had this really awesome article recently. It was on the Good Men Project, and it mentioned the 16 things you need to stop being afraid of. And I found
yeah, that's an old one. That's from way back.
Yeah, and I find it funny. It's like a lot of these things is so true, especially the asking for help one. It's like that one personally for me took a long while for that. Any thoughts on why that could have possibly be one of the things that people need to overcome in life?
I mean, it's been quite a while since I wrote that article, but from what I remember is that, you know, a lot of us, especially I think it can be more of a problem with men where we're taught that, you know, we have to be these tough guys and do it yourself, don't show any emotion, don't show any vulnerability, and be the tough guy. And I think that we're reaching a little bit of a turning point in society, I think, where we're starting to reinvent and have a better understanding of how maybe some gender roles are falsely constructed, and that people can just be who they want to be without having to fulfill any of these stereotypes that society thrusts upon them. And that men and women and everyone can decide what type of the way that they're going to present themselves to the world and who they're going to be, and that it's okay if you need help with something, if you're struggling either emotionally or spiritually or physically, or you need some assistance from others out there. How we have become the dominant life form on the planet is through cooperation. We are social creatures who lift each other up. And if you need assistance in something, there are other people out there who would love to be able to help you be the best that you can be. And I think that a lot of people forget that. They forget that, and they're afraid to ask for that help. And I think that we just need to be more open to seeking out our fellow humans and helping them and being helped by them.
That classic fortune cookie cliche, teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's right, all the kids and all the adulting, right?
Yep.
And it's really true indeed. I mean, it's like, hey, it's going to take a team to get a book out. I mean, yeah, you're the author, you're the main guy behind everything, and then, of course, you need like an editor and possibly a publicist as well, and other folks to point you in certain directions to help you actually crank out that project. So have you had any mentors that... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, there were so many people with this book. Even going back, one of the things that helped me write the book in the beginning was I run quite a popular Facebook page that gets a lot of comments. And one of the things that I think helped sculpt my writing, make me more insightful into what makes humans tick and what drives them, is having all these people commenting on my Facebook page where they pour their hearts out about their hopes and dreams and struggles. And that's why I really like reading those comments, because it gives me a better understanding of the human condition. And there were thousands of people that contributed to my knowledge base that helped write this book. And then you've got, like I said, the people that I interviewed and how supportive my family's been, and my agent, my editor, publicist, and the marketing department, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But sorry, you were going to ask a question about mentors. And I cut you off. So please go ahead and ask that question now.
Oh, sure. If you can count how many mentors you've had in life that have really helped you to get the success that you currently have, it's how many have you had, and how have they helped you?
There's been a number over time, I would say. I mean, my mother was a really big one growing up. And you read about her in the introduction as well as in chapter 2, that she really had a horrible childhood, and she inspired me because for one reason was that she'd had this terrible upbringing and refused to perpetuate that cycle of abuse, and instead was the most loving mother you could possibly have, to the point where it's okay, yeah, I get it, Mom, you love me, but now you're embarrassing me, kind of thing. So that was just, the strength of the love that she had for her family was something that really inspired me, but also how she was extraordinarily driven to be a successful businesswoman. And not just that, but she did it in a very ethical way. So she was in a business where there was a fair bit of corruption, and she refused to engage in that. And that was one of the things that helped her be so successful, was that she actually helped her clients, and that was what made her successful. Rather than take advantage of her clients, she was the type of person that was always looking for the win-win scenario. And so I was very inspired by her. And then on the writing side, and my wife is another where she inspired me, but just what an extraordinarily hard worker she's always been. She was a straight A student in her undergraduate, and then graduated top of her class from medical school. And so I was always kind of feeling like I was trying to catch up to be almost as good as she is. And then another big mentor that I had was my thesis advisor for my master's degree in history, where he really challenged me with that red pen of his, I got to tell you. When I was writing my master's thesis, he was correcting my grammar and wanting me to write the best thesis that I possibly could. So I learned so much about the art and science of writing from him, because he really challenged me and he pushed me to become a better writer. And so yeah, those are the three big ones: mother, wife, and thesis advisor. Great
list of names indeed. History, the red pen. Oh man.
And it was red. It wasn't like a kinder green or blue. It was that vicious red.
Oh yeah. Yep. Remember that one time I had a classmate. He's like, "Man, why is your paper so bloody?" I'm like, "Oh." But yeah, those are probably the greatest people ever, and and especially you mentioning your wife, and you even have the site name Body for Wife.
Yeah, and some people get the wrong impression about that. They think that, do you only work out in order to be, visually pleasing to your wife? And the answer is no, of course not. It was an old joke that, there's a little bit of truth to it in the very beginning, in that we've been together for about 4 years, and I put on a fair bit of weight, and she never said anything about it. But I decided I want to propose marriage it was just an impetus to change. I think before I proposed, I'm going to get in shape. It was not that I thought that it was going to make any kind of difference. It just seemed like, I'll get in shape first, and then I'll propose. And it was just this idea that popped into my head. And so that was sort of where it began. And years later, I was working out with some friends. We went to the gym at lunch together. These guys that I worked with, work colleagues. We went to the gym at lunch together every day. And this was back when a book called Body for Life was really popular. Everybody was doing it. And these guys were all doing the Body for Life program. And I was in better shape than they were. I was bigger. I was more muscular than they were. And one of them said, geez, like this was after our workout. We're getting changed to go back to work. And my pecs were all pumped up from working out. And Steve said, geez, James, what's your secret? And it just popped into my head, and I just made a joke. I said, I'm on the Body for Life program. And they all laughed. And my other friend, Stephen, said, you should write a book called that. And we went back to the office, and I said, Body for Life. Yeah, that's got a good ring to it. And so I bought the URL that day using my work computer. And I parked it. I didn't do anything with it for years. And then years later, I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this writing thing a try. I still got this Body for Life URL. And people it resonated with them. They thought it was funny. They liked it. So it's just sort of a personal brand, inside joke among friends from long ago. And I was confident enough in my relationship that it was going to last, that I could hinge my entire brand around it. And we've been together over 29 years now and still going strong, so I think it was a wise decision.
Woohoo! Congratulations, man. That's a feat, man. Some folks don't last 29 minutes, man. That's amazing. 29 years together, baby. Body for wife, baby. Body for wife.
Yeah, she is my muse, that's for certain.
I'm pretty sure someone's made some S&M jokes with that URL, right? Well, Kerry, you mentioned a couple books in back of the book, the Daniel Kahneman book, as well as Malcolm Gladwell's famous book. Are there any other books that have really inspired you to just keep pushing?
Books that inspired me to keep pushing. Yeah, that's it's interesting. So when it comes to nonfiction, a lot of what I read is more articles. But when it comes to books, I'm actually much more into reading novels and science fiction and fantasy. And it was funny because last night I had a friend over and we were talking about fantasy novels. She's a fantasy novelist. And we were talking about books that we really love. And, quite often in fantasy novels, there's the young hero of the story and the struggles that they go through. And there was a series called The Belgariad by David Edding that was written decades ago that I read as a teen that my friend and I, we both talked about how many times we had read this series. And it starts off where the hero of this series is a young boy, and he's a good person. He's got a good heart and he's decent, but he's, thrown into this struggle to essentially save the world. But he never lets the trials of the world change who he is at his core, because he's surrounded with good people who love him. And if anything, I feel like I was inspired by this fantasy series that, if you stay true to your values and your beliefs, don't let the world wear you down and change you and make you cynical or evil in order to get ahead, that, you can persevere.
That's right, can heal indeed, and not just high heels either. Oh man, but that is kind of an interesting thing how sometimes it works where it's like a lot of like reading is it's like usually sometimes a lot of folks read fiction and novels and sometimes science fiction novels as opposed to just reading more nonfiction. Because I guess it kind of gives you a break from the noise that's out there in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, in preparing to write this book, I read a lot of books that were related to it. Some, you know, and a lot of them are listed in the references section, and it did give me an appreciation for just the deep dive into some real scientific subjects. But a lot of my research just comes from reading a lot of articles. But one of the reasons why I like novels is that because I do so much reading during the day that is nonfiction, that I often feel like, you know, at the end of the day, I need an escape into something that is science fiction or fantasy or historical fiction. But another reason that I really enjoy them is that I feel that some of the best writers out there are novelists. And as a writer myself, someone who I pride myself on my ability to craft good sentences and tell good stories that people enjoy reading, that my greatest, even though I write nonfiction, my greatest inspiration for my craft are all novelists. So it helps me become a better writer by reading a lot of novels.
That is a key right there. Definitely a wisdom key right there. Well, coming down the pike here is a question I like to ask every guest, and that is if you were 25 in the current year, but you get to keep all of your knowledge, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, boy. That's a good one. Okay, so it's current year, so I don't get to give them any advice about investing in certain technology companies or anything.
Nope. Can't invest in Microsoft or Apple, sorry.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think that, one of the things that I talk about in the book is the transformative experience that I had in terms of quitting drinking, which was only a few years ago. And it wasn't that I had a big problem with alcohol, but I did drink more than what was really good for you. I was able to rationalize it because I ate really healthy. I was at a very healthy body weight. I did a lot of exercise. You know, I'm in the top 1 or 2% of people in terms of the amount of exercise that I do. And I figured, well, that gives me a bit of a get out of jail free card. That was how I rationalized the fact that I like to drink. And so it took until I was 47 where I started researching this book, and I was out for a run, and I had this transformative experience that made me realize I'm going to take a year off drinking. Whereas before, there was like no way I'd ever do that. I'd tried to cut down, not with any success, and so I had this transformative experience where decided to quit for a year. I ended up quitting for 17 months. And the whole plan all along was that one day I would start drinking again, but it would be much less. I would drink a lot less than I did before I quit. And now it's been another 18 months since I started drinking again, and it is way less. It's about a quarter of what it used to be. So the advice that I would give my 25-year-old self would be try and coach that man into having that experience back then, so that you know, instead of at the age of 47 dramatically cutting back on the alcohol intake, doing it at the age of 25, and that would be the only thing. It's just that you don't need to drink that much alcohol to have fun. And I just found that life got better during the 17 months that I wasn't drinking. Life was great, and then when I started drinking again, just at a very light levels, it was like, okay, now I can enjoy it just a little bit, and it's fine, and I'm just better off and happier and healthier, not drinking nearly so much.
That's real solid advice indeed, because I know some folks out there, they may be going through a time where they just need alcohol to either cope with life or forget about something or to give them that liquid courage. But it's great that you're able to put that aside for a good 18 months and then, I guess, slowly drink a cup or two every now and then.
Yeah. Yeah. When you drink to alleviate stress, it creates a vicious cycle where you just need to keep doing it. And when I quit, the desire to stress drink went away so fast. Like within a couple of weeks, I was amazed at how quick it was gone. And now I realize that okay, yes, that when you're stressed out, do anything else. Go for a run, work out, read a book, something like that. Get rid of that desire to stress drink. And you instead only drink because you want to enjoy the taste of one or two, or split one with my wife because you're celebrating out with friends. The amount that you end up drinking is so much less.
One of the greatest things ever. So for those who want to keep in touch with you and, of course, to purchase the wonderful book, The Holy Shit Moment, how do we keep in touch with you and all that you're doing?
The best place to find me is my home online, which is bodyforwife.com. And there are links to my social media and links to buy the book. So there's a books tab right there. And I'm also on Twitter at Body for Wife. So it's just Body for Wife across the board.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Type in Body for Wife and you'll see a wonderful picture of James Phil, and you should see a picture of his upcoming book, The Holy Shit Moment. Go on ahead and pick up a copy of that book. Heck, pick up 7 copies of that book. 7's a lucky number, right?
Yes, indeed. I would like it if they bought 7.
That's right. Give it to your friends and your family, especially those who's going to need a nice reality check for the whole New Year's resolution thing. Because we all know change can happen in an instant, but it's going to take a lot of effort to keep it going and to make it last. Thanks a bunch for your listening ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you really, really enjoyed that episode. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family, especially those who love podcasts and love listening to some inspiration and motivation.